Okay, Matthew, we're looking at domain and range of continuous functions here, all right? So we're talking about the difference between discrete and continuous first off. Discrete functions have a limited or finite number of elements. In other words, anytime you graph them, you just get points, okay? They're non-connected dots, so it's just dots on a graph. You can see down here, just dots on a graph. Those are discrete functions, okay? Where on the other hand, if you have continuous functions, you have an infinite number, which means a limitless number of elements. What always ends up happening is you end up with a smooth line or a curve, okay? And they are connected together. So it's kind of like, it's a big difference between some graphs that you've done in the past. I've got some examples of those down below. We're going to take a look at this one first. All right. First thing I notice is this type of graph, if you'll notice, is talking about, the number of nights and the total cost. So maybe this is a vacation. They charge you, looks like they charge you $2,100 for one night and maybe $2,200 for 2 nights. So my question is, how much would they charge you for 1.5 nights? And of course, on this graph, they don't charge you at all. And that's a big clue as to why this is discrete. Okay? Discrete means all these in-between points don't count. Like there is no 5.5. There is no 7.5. So those are discrete. The domain of this, all right, the domain represents all the x's. If you can imagine shining a flashlight above the graph, well, the domain will be the shadow on the x-axis. So if I shine a flashlight above, the shadow for each of these are all of the numbers where those dots are directly above, okay? And don't forget the number 0. I forgot that the first time. But if I shine a flashlight, all of these numbers, but notice there's no fractions there. On the other side, if you shine it directly to the side, it'll be all of the places where the points hit on the y-axis. So as you can tell, I have to list every single one of these because it's finite. So I list every single possible one that's done. And that's the difference between discrete and continuous. So in a discrete function, you're going to list your domain and range. Now on a continuous function, you wouldn't. Now this one's continuous. And one reason I know it's continuous is that every single fraction will count. Every little piece of this counts. For example, if I'm looking right here, at 6 hours it's a 5, and at 9 hours it's a 20. But how did I get from 6 to 9? Well, I had to go through 6.5, and 7, and 7.5, and 8, and 8.5. And every single one of those is represented on my graph. So there are no holes, there's no jumps, there's no blanks. Everything counts. So it's continuous. Most of the time is continuous because time never stops. The clock never stops. All right, so we look at this and we've got domain versus range. So once again, we're going to talk about shining a flashlight. So I shine my flashlight down, and when I shine my flashlight from above, what's the shadow on the X sidewalk? Well, it's all of those points from here to here. So every single one of these is the shadow. So from 6 to 18 represents my shadow, which means that's my domain. Now, we played around. How do you write all those out? Well, you can't list them all, can you? No, you can't list every single time between 6 and 18 because there could be 6 minutes or 6 hours and 1 minute and 1 millisecond. And so you can't list them all, so we have to write a different way. So we say that x is greater than 6 and x is less than 18. Now, that's not the best math way of doing things. Yes, these are all bigger than 6 and they're less than 18. So you combine those together and you say that x is in between 6 and 18. And that's the best way to talk about our domain. So this is how we're going to start writing things. Now I change my flashlight over here, and this time I shine it sideways. And where's the shadow? Well, the shadow is between 5 and 25. So I write down all the y's between 5 and 25. And that's how I write down my range. Let's try a couple more and then I'll just let it go and you can watch. Here's another one. It is, again, is continuous because notice there are no breaks in my line. Okay, so we talk about domain and range. If I shine a flashlight down, it's going to cover the entire year here, isn't it? So all of my x's are between what looks like on this graph, it looks like it's all my x's are between August and June. All right. Now if I shine mine from the side, if I shine my flashlight from the side, then the range is going to be all the numbers between 0 and 18. Another, this time, discrete or continuous. It's discrete. Obviously, we're just talking about points. If I shine down, the only places that are covered are 1, 2, 4, and 5. And if I shine from the side, then the only places that are covered are 5, 4, 3, and 1. So my domain and range. One more continuous one. This is continuous. There are no breaks in it whatsoever. So as I shine down on this one, and I actually had to shine up too, it actually covers the entire x-axis, doesn't it? This arrow here means it goes on forever, and this arrow here means it goes on forever. So it's actually covering the whole x-axis. So that's all real numbers, and sometimes we write that like this. X is an element of all real numbers. If I shine it side to side, it's pretty clear to see which ones they cover here, but because of that arrow, it keeps going up forever and down forever, so it's also going to cover all real numbers for the y-axis. Here's a quadratic that we used last year. Now we have to make a decision whether or not these are arrows or not. Right now, they're not drawn in there, but if we add the arrows, we'll say that it's all real numbers. And for the range, if I shine it side to side, notice it's all of those points that are above 24. Okay, I'm going to back up just a little bit right there. All right, some folks said, hey, maybe the y's are between 24 and infinity, and I like that, but this isn't really the way we write stuff. So instead, we just say it's all numbers bigger than 24. Guys, that's going to be enough for that. Bring some questions to class tomorrow. I hope this helped.